Hi, welcome to another episode of Tinnitist TV. Today I'm talking to Brendan Canning of Broken Social Scene. Like a lot of musicians, he prefers moving forward to looking back. But like a lot of musicians, he and his bandmates have had their career pretty much put in park by the pandemic. So this week, the long-running, ever-evolving Toronto indie rock collective are taking a glance in the rearview mirror with a new Rarities retrospective, Old, Dead, Young. The album collects more than a dozen B-sides, outtakes, demos, and other recordings pulled from 20 years of singles, compilations, soundtracks, and hard-to-find releases. But it's no cobbled-together collection of random junk and half-finished experiments. Many, if not most, of these numbers are every bit as good as anything the band have released on their 5 official albums. A few days before Old Dead Young arrived, Canning, who co-founded BSS with Kevin Drew back in 1999, got on the Zoom to talk about the new album, songwriting, the band's future, bad movies he scored, the proper temperature for a cheese platter, and much more. Enjoy. So you've got the Old Dead Young comp coming out
Yeah.
this week. Is that just the result of us all being in lockdown and you guys having time on your hands and no ability to record new music, or is there sort of more behind it than that?
No, I think it was just the fact that we were coming up on, the 20th anniversaries of albums that we've released in the past, like Feel Good Lost and You Forgotten People. So with those anniversaries comes the obligatory anniversary packaging and all that kind of thing, which bands do, and we're no different than that.
Sure.
And you throw in some extra goodies to make it more enticing for, and hopefully get some new fans. But in the same breath, Cam Reed at our label, he said, it was his idea, and I've said, he was the one who wanted to. It's like, what if we got, like, he was just started listing off all these songs, and we just said, oh yeah, that's a good one. Oh, that's a good one. Yeah, they never, a lot of songs, when you put out like a 7-inch or something, I mean, we're not really a 7-inch kind of band. Right. So most of those songs just go unheard, and there's some good tracks. And then, you throw one song on a compilation that, that compilation is not going to be very well distributed. So there's like you end up over the span of a 20-year career, give or take, you end up with a bunch of songs that, why not, and we can't all be together recording, and everyone was, it's just like being in a band for 20 years is hard enough. Like, I'm not, whining too much, but as far as like maintaining that band thing that you have, because we're kind of a loose band at best. When people toss the collective word on us, well, it is more of a collective than a band, even though we live in a band world. So yeah, everyone's got, we're all getting older. Everyone wants to not have to check in with other people when they hit the final send on a song that they've written. So you've got all these solo albums coming out, whether it's Kevin or Sam or Charles or Ariel. I've released a bunch of solo stuff over the years, done film soundtrack work. And so I think the B-sides is just like, let's just enjoy the past and not be too hypercritical of the past.
So it sounds like you're almost saying you're doing it as much for you guys as for the fans. It's kind of an equal balance situation there almost.
I think when at least when I listen back, I'm like, yeah, there are some tunes that surely could have made an album easily if enough people had have really lobbied for a particular song. But bands often like politics. It's like, a certain song that's like you getting a bill passed through the house, as it were. So if someone's going to champion that one song and can get enough folks on their side and filibusters withstanding, you end up with
You're really taking the romance out of the whole process here.
well, let's call it what it is.
Okay.
It's a B-sides and rarities during a pandemic, during a lockdown.
Sure.
Like it's also like there's some great jams, and we've played some of them live, and some songs have been very good to us. And there's been lots of times throughout the career where I'm like, that song should have been an A-side. I don't know why the fuck that wasn't an A-side, but that's 12 years ago, so I'm not going to complain too much about it. And now it comes out. So,
but does it often come down to lobbying, like you say? Because I mean, you talk to a lot of artists about what ends up on an album and what doesn't, and they talk about, well, this just it doesn't fit in with the flow, or they have more artistic decisions behind it, as opposed to, well, nobody argued for it enough.
It's a bit of both.
Yeah, okay.
It's a bit of both, but there's with a band like ours, very opinionated members, very we're all living our separate lives. We're not 23 and hitting the road for the first time. So, and yeah, as far as taking the romance out of it, I mean, it is what it is right now. It's not like the most romantic time to be alive. It's like you don't half the time you don't look at people's faces, and you don't elicit smile, or like maybe you do elicit a smile, but you wouldn't fucking know it because everyone's wearing a mask, and it's very frustrating to be a people person. And I've predicated my entire career on going out and meeting people. That's how I get jobs. That's how I meet musicians. That's how that's how the whole thing works. My entire career is predicated on being out there, meeting the people. So yeah, if the romance is slightly out of my my tone of voice, well, it is what it is.
So I'm getting the sense you have not had a great couple of years.
I'm just but that's also wrong to say. I'm just a hyper realist.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Like a complete realist. I'm not having a bad. I woke up today, listened to some nice music, walk the dog. It's warmed up. Every morning, my coffee tastes delicious that I make myself here.
It's the Warren Zevon thing. Enjoy every sandwich, right?
Enjoy every sandwich. Yeah. Like I always Warren Zevon's words, and mine are always like, always have enough money, so at least you can get yourself a nice sandwich somewhere. Like, you don't ever want to be somewhere where you can't afford a sandwich.
Perfect. So back to this album. I mean, a lot of this then, it sounds like, was probably done by email, and do this song, that song. Was there a lot of discussion in terms of what should and shouldn't, or the sequencing, or was it pretty straightforward?
No, I mean, there's probably whatever, like 400, 500 emails, which is pretty standard for this band. And yeah, it's just, I can't recall the first email that went out, but it was like a marketing plan from your pal at your label, who is in some ways your de facto manager, because we're without management. Just giving you all the business side of things. But this is band life.
Yeah, exactly.
And then a bunch of people get on board. We're like, yeah, that's a good idea. It's like, oh yeah, I'd love to re-release that song, or at least like have a moment or two in the sunshine. And it's like, who's gonna complain? Like, you have a label that wants to get behind your band and continue to release your music.
Right.
So
but did it start off with like a list of 100 songs that you would?
No, not that. Okay. Maybe like 30 at maximum. Yeah.
And then it comes down to lobbying again.
Yeah, but not, I think see the difference between lobbying for an album, because when you're in the thick of it and making an album, you're way more precious about things, and you're in the thick of it. When you're looking back, say 10, 12, 15, 17 years, then you can be a little less precious and sort of listen to the songs more objectively, and like listen to a sequence and think it's like, oh yeah, that works. It's like that into that works. And yeah, we got, sounds like a Broken Social Scene record. You know, it's tagged as B-sides, but it could be tagged as like, I don't know, could be tagged as something else. Like, here's, you know, the Lost album. Like, not gonna compare.
A- sides.
Yeah, or, John Coltrane put, you know, his last release was, you know, the forgotten album, you know, but that could have easily been sold as, you know, the B-sides of John Coltrane. Like, we don't know how he felt about that last album and whether he thought it was worthy of releasing, but it was sitting there in the archives and it was recorded. So, but we're all still living, even though we called the album Old, Dead, Young.
Well, at least one of those words somewhere in there, or some combination, right?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
So I mean, does anybody have final say on this, or is it just negotiated until people get tired and drop off, and somebody ends up having final say?
This one was pretty. There was no bloodshed.
Okay.
Versus other albums where, you know, it can get a bit hideous. Just because you're in a band, and, you know, it's like there's a lot of that sometimes, because it's just the nature of being in a band.
That's why it's good to be a collective where you all go off again, right?
Yeah. It's like, I hate you, and then, you know, 8 months later, like, oh, I don't. You know what? I don't hate you as much as I thought I did. And you know, when I'm out on my own, it's like, oh, I seem to have got a couple shortcomings here, and I wasn't able to finish the song as well as when there's 3 other people chirping in my ear about how it should be finished. So,
but do you and Kevin, or does anybody have like a veto power at some stage in these proceedings?
Yeah, you know, there's a core band,
right?
Essentially, like the core is ultimately, for a number of years, if not always, has been, you know, Kevin, myself, Charles, Justin, Andrew.
Right.
So, but Andrew wasn't gonna kick up any fuss. And ultimately, yeah, I mean, there was no need to bring in the big pen for vetoing. It was, this is probably one of the smoother processes. But at the same time, you're all on emails and no one's, it's like, there's no need to get feathers ruffled when you're reissuing some older songs. It's just, let's be happy that we're all still talking, and it's not like the When Hell Freezes Over tour.
Right. So when you guys are making albums, do you, to bring up the Eagles, a band that famously has never had an unreleased track or an outtake because they only, you know, write songs and complete songs and only do as many songs as they need for an album. Do you guys have, by contrast, you know, do you come into the studio with like 50 or 60 pieces of songs, or how does it work generally? I'm sure everyone's different.
Yeah, I mean, everyone's different. Like, I could show up with no ideas, but have an idea within the first 5 minutes. It's like just by someone else play like a couple notes. I mean, that's usually where, or I don't know. I mean, every song has a different story, you know, like I can't remember how they were all written, and I can remember how a lot of them are written.
But do you guys ever just go in with like with nothing? I mean, because there are some bands, I think Sonic Youth, for example, are pretty famous for going, you know, we go into the studio with nothing ahead of time, nothing planned, just walk in, plug in, look at each other and start writing.
Yeah. Every now and then we like, if we're in a good zone, we can do that.
Wow.
But we're not as, I'd say, experimental as a group like Sonic Youth.
Sure.
You know, we're a little more pop and gleeful.
Gleeful is not a word that I think a lot of people would necessarily, I mean, happy, yes. Gleeful sounds a bit, you know.
Well, in contrast to Sonic Youth, maybe.
Well, sure, yeah.
Yeah. Which, you know, as a band, like, there's a big influence on me early days.
Sure.
So
talking about, you know, listening to these songs with the remove of years or even decades, Is there one or more that really kind of leapt out at you with, holy shit, I'd kind of forgotten how good this was, or maybe I'd even forgotten this song completely?
I really liked hearing Curse Your Fail, because that one, like that to me, could have easily gone on Forgiveness Rock record. In fact, I would have happily pulled a song from Forgiveness Rock record and plopped that one in there, or two, you know. Canada versus America, another one where it's like, you know, I don't know why this was, you know, I would have plucked a song from the self-titled record and thrown that one on there, because it's seemingly very like poppy kind of song. I mean, you know, it's got some post-punk leanings to it, or you know, whatever, without throwing too many tags at it. House on Fire, you know, that's one of Kev's that I think, you know, I heard. I was listening to Democracy Now! Last Thursday, and of course, you know, it's the anniversary of the insurrection, such a weird word. And you know, they threw House on Fire as like, you know, Washington is burning. So it's like, yeah, it found a nice home, and I was kind of chuffed that Democracy, you know, a show I listen to every Thursday when I do my volunteer work. You know, so I'd say those three right out of the gate. I mean, God, what else is? Oh, and Old Dead Young. That's, you know, to me, again, like from the Hug of Thunder sessions, I could yank a tune off Hug of Thunder and plop that one on there, no problem.
No, you know, you could do that. You could do the George Lucas versions, right?
Yeah, or maybe maybe those were like the EP. Yeah, I don't know. Old Dead Young just. I didn't lobby hard enough for it, I think, at the time. Because that song to me really has like the immediacy and the urgency of why I think people liked Broken Social Scene from the get-go, because it's just like, it's a song that pushes. And maybe it's, you know, say, oh, it's not as good as Almost Crimes. It's like, well, you know, I don't know. Maybe someone who's never heard of our band will listen to those two songs up against each other and be like, Almost Crimes I don't really like, but I really like Old Dead Young. I mean, who knows, right? I don't want to overthink like who's liking what, but.
Is one of you more of an archivist than the others in terms of, you know, things like this?
I know Justin is really heavy on the archives. I mean, I have so many posters and a couple of bins down in the basement that are just full of archive material. But as far as like archiving music, well, I mean, there's just so much stuff, you know. I had to, the other night, I just wanted to watch, there was this terrible movie that I scored that Paul Schrader made called The Canyons, that starred Lindsay Lohan and a porn star named James Dean. Wow. And I just wanted to watch it to hear like how the music sounded in the film.
Had you seen it before?
Oh yeah, like it was. Okay. It came out in 2013.
Okay.
And it was written by Bret Easton Ellis, and just like a ghastly script, you know. It's like, seems like he was like sitting on the toilet, and you know, 10 minutes later he had the script finished. And just the acting, some of the acting is just horrific. But you know, as someone who is just curious about, oh, let's hear how the music holds up, you know. Yeah. So, because otherwise I have no, you know, like I can't like sit around and be like, oh, let's hear the Canyon soundtrack. Let's hear all my songs up. Or what about that documentary we did about the Liberian logging industry? You know, I can't just readily, well, I guess I can go watch the movie, but I don't have like, I can't go to the computer and pull all these things up. I'm not much of an archivist that way. But you know, one of our partners, Ohad Benchitrit, who has been a big part of Broken Social Scene over the years and is also in the group Do Make Say Think, he has a lot of stuff in his files and his hard drives. With Dave Neufeld, who did the first couple albums, we did the first couple albums with. So it's all in bits and pieces.
Right. It's all kind of accessible through one member of the chain or the other, I guess. Huh?
Yeah. We're trying to get together a Broken Social Scene movie right now. So yeah, there's going to be lots of
a documentary or
yeah, I guess more of a documentary. Yeah, we're still trying to put the pieces together.
Oh, okay. So it sounds like it's still sort of vague in the ether.
It's not as vague as that, but
okay.
It needs to be
You're just playing coy is what you're doing.
Needs to be lassoed.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about other artists? I mean, are there people who you are sort of a completist of that getting an album like this, with all the various bits and pieces and bits and bobs that appeals to you, that you just have to have everything by?
No, I'd say there is a reggae producer, Scientist, and his albums, the artwork is all done by Tony McDermott, which I kind of drew as inspiration when I put out my first solo record. So for a while there, because it was like Scientist versus Pac-Man, or Scientist, the heavyweight champion of the world, or Scientist wins the World Cup. There's all these great like illustrated covers. So I was getting a bit like that, but I have 4. That's enough. Like I can't, they're all cool album artworks. I have like shitloads of Thelonious Monk albums or Coltrane records, or loads of Beatles records. But as far as I got like a bunch of Deer Hunter records.
But you're not a completist for anybody?
No, because God, I don't know. There's enough music. I'm quite happy to listen to my local college radio station, because I'm always going to hear music that I don't have.
Well, so, yeah, isn't that, I mean, yeah, that's part of the thing, though. I mean, I think that's kind of one thing that separates people into two groups. There are those people who, really just want to stick with the things they know and maybe expand. And then there's those people who like you, and I'm kind of the same way. I'm always more interested in hearing something I haven't heard before, and might never hear unless you went down the rabbit hole looking for it, Well,
yeah, I mean, I was really enjoying watching that Beatles documentary, and that was great. And it brought me to listening to a couple of albums. But generally, I don't like, I got to listen to, Exile on Main Street. I really want to just get there. Or I got to listen to Dark Side of the Moon.
Yeah.
I'm good. I've heard it many, 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 many times. Do I need to go back and listen to Public Enemy? It Takes a Nation of Millions to Hold Us Back. Like, how many times did I listen to that album? Like, so many times.
Right.
Do I need to go back and listen to Midnight Marauders? It's like, yeah, I won't turn it off if I'm at a party and it's on. But,
sure.
I'm much more happy listening to the latest Tribe Called Quest record, which I think is a killer album. And, do I need to listen to, the early Strokes albums, or would I rather listen to the Voids? It's like, well, I haven't heard the Voids as much as the Strokes albums. Yeah. Same as you.
Yeah, you want the new stuff. So what about your own writing? Have you been doing a lot lately? This would seem to be, you certainly have the time.
Yeah, got the time. I wouldn't say I've completed much, but there's a woman who I've been friends with for a while. Like years ago, she had played me her music, and I was like, damn, like, you are a killer singer. You got this like big Jefferson Airplane meets Peggy Lee, just like huge voice, really special. And I was sending her some of my more macabre piano jams. Don't want to call them piano jams, but pieces, just in my voice memos, with a lot of diminished chords and a lot of minor fifths and whatever. Just chords I couldn't get away with in Broken Social Scene.
Sure.
And not the kind of band we are. And I just send her voice memos, and then she'd fire me back like these really well laid out vocals. I was like, damn, this is like, my jaw dropped. And a couple of people I played it for, they're like, this is fucking incredible. But because it's a pandemic and it's an unusual kind of like she's never released any music on her own. I don't really know what to do with it other than like it should be a theater piece. There should be a play written around this music, or maybe it's something, because it's like very dark and brooding. So, I was doing some of that, ultimately just sitting down at the piano a lot, trying to become a better piano player. Like,
Oh,
not
well,
work.
that's a noble accomplishment or goal.
Yeah, I mean, it's not, it's like I've definitely become a lot stronger. My left hand has developed over the past couple of years, and it would be great to just be able to go into a session and be like, oh, well, we already got a guitar player, we already got a bass player, you want to play piano? Like, yeah, sure. And I could sit down and be confidently say, I think that's probably like the greatest accomplishment of the pandemic. Like, I've, let's face it, I've been a part of a group that's released loads of music, bunch of soundtracks, been in 15 or 16 different bands over the years. So I'm good. I'm not like, I gotta put out the solo album. But
I also get the sense that maybe for you, it's kind of something you can turn on and turn off to some degree, in terms of, when it's time to reconvene, you can spend a couple of weeks and sit down and come up with enough ideas to walk into the room with.
Oh yeah. I mean, you could say it's like, hey, we're starting recording tomorrow, and then you just show up and come with your ears.
Right. I mean, I think I read somewhere that in your writing anyway, you're very conscious of trying to leave a lot of space in the music for the obvious reasons of a whole bunch of people are going to come in and want to, have at it, so to speak, which I mean, is kind of it strikes me as a different way of approaching songwriting, in terms of, almost trying to do as little as possible as opposed to as much as possible.
Well, I just think there's too many talented people out there who are going to come up with better ideas than, it's like, okay, I can, I got this really great part for this song, but it's like, is it a really great part, or is it just you think it's a really great part?
Right. And
I've been the most successful when I've shared ideas. So why break with that, sort of run of thought when, you got a band like Broken Social Scene, you got a lot of talented people who can easily come in, give you a part here, give you a part there, or lead you to a different direction. And yeah, I maintain that, like, I didn't grow up like listening to Bob Dylan and thinking like, oh man, like these songs are really meaningful to me. I grew up listening to bands, whether it's like the Beatles or, like my first albums were like Genesis, Duke, and Triumph, Rock and Roll Machine, or my first 45s were like XTC or the Pretenders or the Clash.
Sure.
Always bands. The first bands I got into were like Kiss and then Black Sabbath, even Ozzy solo. It's like, well, it's still a band. You still got Randy Rhoads on guitar and Tommy Aldridge on drums, and it's like always like bands. The only like solo artists I've liked over the years, maybe like Stevie Wonder, Michael Jackson, Neil Young, and like later on Bob Dylan, I guess, but never like, not gonna.
And yet you're in this sort of thing that is kind of between all those things, because you guys aren't that traditional, four horsemen kind of brothers in arms band to that degree. And at this stage of your life, would you even want to be in that kind of an ensemble? Because obviously the thing you've been doing is what works better for you.
I mean, who knows? Like, it'd be really fun to have like a new group or ensemble, and maybe I don't know,
Yeah. Anything's possible. Yeah. Anything's possible.
Anything's possible when you're not in a pandemic.
Well, exactly.
When you're in a pandemic, then I can't go up to the Cameron house and be like, oh, I mean, I found a vocalist for my last solo album when I was like, Danny Nash was playing drums and singing Helpless. And I was at the back of the bar like, oh, who's singing? It's like, what a killer voice, and it's a song we've all heard a zillion times, but sometimes you hear someone sing it in a different way, it's like, that is very impressive. And then you talk to Danny, and then you say, hey, I'm recording tomorrow. You want to come and do some singing? And she's like, well, I'm at my uncle's funeral in Bowmanville, but I'll drive back. And then she shows up at 8 o'clock after her uncle's funeral and nails it in a couple of takes. We're like, oh, I'm sure glad I went to the Cameron house last night, you know?
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, it sounds like you have really succeeded by embracing this sort of willingness to just be open to what comes along and go with the flow, as opposed to a lot of people who are about, you know, figuring things out well in advance and you know, marching along in lockstep.
Yeah, I'm not that conceptual at the end of the day. I'm more conceptual in a, like, that's the concept. Being open, yeah, being open to the idea. That's my concept.
No concept is your concept.
No concept is my concept.
There's your next album title.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you very much. I'll put that in notes.
Uh-huh. So you guys have an April show tentatively booked. What's the plan there?
Good question. Good question. 2 shows too, because when we postponed December, and thank God we did, it's like right before, I mean, we postponed that show, and then, you know, December 13th, the announcement came. It's like, okay, venues are going to be, you know, half capacity starting to like the night after our gig. But it just would have been so depressing to walk out onto the stage of Massey Hall. You've waited your career to headline Massey Hall. You walk out there and the room's half empty. Like, what a colossal drag that would be.
Yeah.
Can't even imagine. So thank God we moved it. So hopefully April, and we got 2 shows now, which is better for me, because I was disappointed at the fact that we didn't have a hold for the second, just to give you the business rundown. So now we have 2 shows. So it's better than, you know, you haven't played a gig in 2 years. Sure would be nice to at least do a couple of hometown shows. So the plan for those 2 nights is coming together. I mean, we're a group. We got a bunch of songs. I mean, we'll get into a rehearsal space and start discussing it. And I mean, I think we should be focusing on a few of these old Dead Young tracks, because I, you know, never really played, like most of them didn't get much of a chance to shine over the years. Except for maybe like All My Friends Are Magazines. We were like playing that one a bunch over the years, for a brief period anyway. So yeah, I don't know. We'll do something at Massey.
Fingers crossed, everything goes wonderfully, and there's no more, you know, is this, do you think, maybe the start of a new cycle of productivity and touring? Is that the way you're sort of hoping it goes?
Yeah, there's definitely a retooling or a rejigging for the future. I think there just has to be.
In what sense?
Just as far as like how we want to move forward as Broken Social Scene, and what we're gonna put out into the world. And I just don't know if it can go on any longer like the way we've been going on. I think this is like a good 2-year, you know, perspective launch of just seeing where everyone's at and what everyone wants out of their musical career.
Well, what do you want? How would you like to see this going forward?
I would love to make some music, you know. I would love to make some music that that I am in control of, and to a certain degree, and just put out something that you can really say, it's like, yeah, I like your new album, and here's ours. And I don't know if you're going to be able to persuade me that yours is better than mine. So I just want to come out with, you know, you want to come out with a bit of swagger. You want to be like, don't want to be boastful, but also you don't want to be meek. You got to put out something that's going to be it would be great to have like a song poke through in some way, or a couple songs poke through into the ether, where it's like, yeah, you're still a good band, or you're still relevant. I mean, I think that
sounds like you're saying you want to, I don't know, almost have a quote unquote hit.
uh I would not shy away from a hit. I mean, I'm always like, I'm up for anything, whatever a hit means. I mean, I thought when we were making Feel Good Lost, like, this album is, even though it's all like very it's recorded on an 8-track on a 1/4-inch tape, but I was very like, this is it. This is, of course I'm a little bit younger back then and more naive. But it'd be great to go into something with like that sort of blind ambition, just like, fuck this, this is gonna pop some way, somehow. All this is gonna pop. That's all I really want.
So you want to make up for lost time, it sounds like.
Yeah, I mean, 2 years of just, really, like, it's funny when like you get emails and it's like, hey, hope your holidays were good. It's like, who the fuck are you talking to? Hope your holidays were good. What holidays? Or like, oh, I guess, it's like Ken is setting up this interview. It's like, oh, hope you got time to do this. It's like, yeah, Ken, I got fucking loads of time. It's like, how are your holidays? I'm a musician. It's like, someone asked me yesterday, so are you still DJing? I'm like, yeah, I'm DJing. There's a
in your bedroom. Yeah.
Have you ever heard of a thing called a lockdown? Oh my fucking God. Like,
but I mean, there's so many parallel universes existing now too, though. I mean, the one that we live in up here is drastically different from, a lot of the places down south where it is pretty much business as usual.
Yeah, but these are Canadian people talking to me.
No, I know people who should know better. I grant.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I know. Like, if we were in the US, yeah, we'd be, playing gigs.
Could be touring right now.
Yeah. But Canada has its bonuses and its minuses.
Right. Yeah. Well, exactly. One last question about this going forward, in kind of a new way. I mean, are there any other people that you would maybe like to collaborate with, aside from the 6 million that you already collaborate with, talking about, having music that has a greater impact? It almost sounds like you guys could do an album where you bring in other artists of an equal or greater stature to sort of, play around with.
Yeah. I don't necessarily have a wish list or anything like that. I've always, let's see what comes your way,
right.
Because I've never really been successful, like knocking on doors saying, it's like, hi, can I come in? It's much easier when someone knocks on your door and says, oh, can I come in? Then you can, it's like everything from like jobs. Like when I was a kid, it's like most of my jobs just like came my way. Or when you're really like, you're trying to force something, it's just like, no, it's not going to work that way. It's going to work if you work hard. If you put in the work and do something good, then people are going to knock on your door, and then you're going to start to see what opportunities might befall you. So yeah, I'm itching to do anything. Like, I want to be busy. I like being busy. I like working. I like, earning an honest paycheck. I'm very basic that way. I just want to like go out, have some fun. When the cheese comes to your dressing room, I want to leave it out, let it breathe for a couple hours before I eat it. Very basic stuff. Wake up in a foreign city, go for a coffee, just simple pleasures.
I can't say I've heard the cheese platter analogy before in a rock interview.
I guess that's a little bit of baggage. I'm like, because Justin, like, he would always put the cheese in the fridge. I'd be like, but if you put it in the fridge, then how am I going to enjoy it? because you got to let it at least sit out for an hour, or else it's just going to taste like nothing. It'll just taste like a stick of butter or something. Yeah. Like I don't want you to put the cheese away. These are the things, like when you think about touring life, that's like one thing I start to get aggravated.
And I think we found the title for your memoirs now too. I don't want you to put the cheese away.
Yeah. It's lengthy of a title though.
Uh-huh. You're getting almost Spinal Tapish there with the cold cuts though. You're approaching that.
Yeah, well, I know, but this, you know what? Like Spinal Tap nailed it so well. Like I remember watching that one in the 90s, right after my group had done an in-store, but it was like very poorly organized. And it was also, I think, in Toledo, Ohio, and just like no one showed up. And then watching Spinal Tap, and I was just like, oh my God, this is like getting too real. And of course, like getting lost backstage, everything they did, or, when I think it's Nigel was talking about, there's too much perspective. It's like all the lines, they're so good because they're so accurate.
Yeah.
Like there's no joking in that. I mean, it's a comedy and it's insanely funny, but there's also, it's all factual.
A friend of mine went to see it when it was first out and in the theater. And that weekend, Van Halen happened to be playing here in town. And he sits down and just before the movie starts, in walks Eddie and Alex and Valerie Bertinelli and 4 or 5 other people. And they sit down right behind him and they watch the movie. And he said it was just hilarious because they were just basically shitting themselves with laughter at this, the ultimate kind of endorsement.
Oh yeah, of course. Come on. Like it's so close. Yeah. And like, backstage, like, come on, we throw hissy fits if the tequila isn't 100% agave, because you're on the roads. Like if you're simple, you have so little control over most of the things. So you really want to be, it's like that. I need control over this, or then I have nothing. What do I have? If I don't have cheese at the right temperature, I have nothing. I have nothing in my life. Obviously I'm being dramatic, but don't let the truth get in the way of a good story.